This morning I want to take you to Galatians 6. And Lord willing, I'll be there this evening in the evening message as well. And look at a different section of this passage. But today's theme will kind of will all be tied together. So the morning message will answer some questions about the Sunday school lesson, and the evening message hopefully will be very helpful to us as well, and it ties into the other two. So we'll see how the Lord works this out for you. But I want to talk this morning a little bit about which is more powerful, the law of gravity or the law of sowing and reaping. Now think about those two things for a moment, especially you science teachers. Which is more powerful, the law of gravity or the law of sowing and reaping? Now that's an interesting thought. I don't know how I came up with that question through prayer and through study and just thinking about what we're going to talk about this morning. The law of gravity. You know, we're all under the law of gravity this morning. Some of us more so than others. No, all of us are equally under the law of gravity. And for many years, there have been dreamers and scientists alike that have looked for ways to bend the law of gravity so that we can levitate and so that we can, fly without effort and all of those things. And I'm here to report to you this morning that they still haven't succeeded. I know they're working on it because I've read some reports, and there's actually a number of different people who claim to have had some success. Most of them have been disproven. But they're still working on it. Even NASA's working on it this morning. But they still haven't been successful in overcoming or even slightly modifying the law of gravity. But this law of sowing and reaping. Now see, there's a difference between the law and gravity and the law of sowing and reaping. I believe God is the lawmaker of both of those. But one is a written, recorded law, while the other one is just an observed law. Nobody really told us about the law of gravity. I mean, the Bible does hint at that, but, somebody got hit by an apple on the head and they figured this one out, the law of gravity. But I want you to think about this morning. Look at Galatians 6. Let's read starting in verse number 7. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season, notice, we shall reap, if we faint not. And we have therefore opportunity, let's do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. The law of sowing and reaping. Let's talk about it. Let's pray first. Father, thank you for the day. Thank you for your love for us and for this great creation and this opportunity that we have to study your word this morning. I pray that you speak to our hearts, guide and direct our thoughts, and then help us, Father, make a plan for the future as it relates to this law of sowing and reaping. In Jesus' name, amen. These laws both originated, created, thought up by God. And but in spite of the studies and in spite of all the research and in spite of all the effort, humans have still not overcome either one. And I can promise you, whether we figure out a way to modify or get around the law of gravity or not, I can mark it down. You will not ever get around the law of sowing and reaping. It is unbreakable. It is unchangeable. It is forever recorded in God's Word, which is recorded in heaven, and will stand the test of time and eternity. There is no way around it. We're stuck with the law of sowing and reaping. Notice in verse number 7, be not deceived, God is not mocked. He is not and he will not be mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. The verse tells us that the law of sowing and reaping, if there was some way possible for us to change this law or get away from or get out from under this law, God would be ridiculed. God would be mocked. He would be ridiculed. He would be defeated. To overcome the law of sowing and reaping is to supersede God's authority. He said, if you sow and you have, you will reap. And that will never be thwarted. It will never be undone. It will never be modified or changed. In verses 7 and 8, again, be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. I noticed here this morning that this law is a double-edged sword. This law has two sides. Either it will hurt you or it will help you. Either it will cause you grief and scorn and mockery and shame, or it will cause you blessing and encouragement and help. And it all depends on what we sow. It's not somebody else's decision. It's not something beyond your control. It is something well within your ability to determine the outcome. You know, that's another difference between the law of gravity and the law of sowing and reaping. The law of gravity affects everybody. There's just, if you go up, you must come down, right? That's just the way it works. And so that is kind of across the board. But this law has two sides, if you will. Now, let's talk for a moment about the kind of seeds that can be planted. There are literal seeds. In fact, I intended before I left the house this morning to grab one of my wife's buckets. She has buckets and buckets of seeds. And she has recently started planting seeds. There are now hundreds of plants growing in my house under her watchful eye and tender care. And she takes care of these things, and it's greenery inside of my house. It's time to plant seeds. It's time to get the garden ready. So they've been working on that. And what we figured out, I'm sure you're well aware, if you plant a corn seed, you're going to get corn. And bean seeds will produce beans, and apple seeds will produce apples. And whatever kind of seed you plant, physical seed, you're going to reap that exact kind of fruit. I noticed from Genesis chapter 1, verses 11 and 12, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass, herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind. Notice, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. Listen, God said it, and it was so. Verse 12 of Genesis 1, and the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good, it says. You know, it won't be too long. The first day of spring is coming up on the 20th. And, of course, the trees are budding and blossoming. The maple trees are blooming and producing their nectar and getting ready to produce their seeds. You know, those maple seeds that come down in the little twirlies, right? You ever seen those maple trees? And they put out billions of those things. There has to be billions. Have you ever seen one grow an oak tree? No. Nor does an acorn falling from an oak tree ever produce a maple tree, or any other kind of tree for that matter. God's set it up so that the seed you plant is the tree you grow. Right? And he said those plants will produce fruit, and in those fruits will be the seed thereof. And if you take the seed out of off of a tree, a piece of fruit off of a tree, and take the seed out of that fruit, and you put it in the ground, you will grow that type of fruit. There are physical seeds. And there are seeds figurative. There are seeds figurative. And that's really what we're talking about this morning, isn't it? I want you to notice with me Proverbs chapter 11. Proverbs chapter number 11. Follow me with me in your Bible there. And if you didn't bring one this morning, there should be some black ones under the pews there. If you didn't remember that on your way out the door, like I forgot all my seed illustrations. Proverbs chapter number 11. Now, Proverbs chapter 11 is a very good chapter that illustrates this particular truth, these figurative seeds that we're here to talk about this morning. We could call them, I call them figurative seeds or seeds figurative, but truthfully, these seeds are behavioral seeds. All right? That's the kind of seeds we're really talking about. Behavioral seeds. All right? Now, most of you probably have this figured out, but there are different behaviors in different parts of the world, right? If you go to one part of the world, they behave a certain way, and in another part of the world, they behave a certain way. There's behavioral aspects to different cultures all around the world, right? It used to be a cultural thing, a behavioral thing, that if you had somebody that you didn't get along with, you killed them and ate them. Aren't you glad that that behavioral seed has been nixed, gone extinct? As far as we know, all the cultures of the world that used to plant this seed, used to have this behavioral trait, have kind of figured it out that that's not really the best food. You don't make very many friends by consuming your enemies. Behavioral seeds. Notice with me chapter 11 here in Proverbs, verse number 1. It says, a false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. See, these are behavioral seeds. Cheating with a false balance grows extreme hatred on behalf of God. He says it is abomination. That means God hates it. It makes him violently ill, wants to make him throw up when we cheat. Cheating is a behavioral seed. Cheating is something that, again, in different cultures, and by cultures this morning, I might, different households or different classrooms have this cheating thing. It's okay. I mean, what's the big deal? If she writes the right answers to the test down, why can't I just copy them? If you have something and I want it, why can't I offer you fake gold in trade for that? Why not? It's cheating. Right? And God says a false balance is an abomination. You plant the seed, the behavioral seed of cheating, and all of a sudden God is now your enemy. And he wants to spew you out of his mouth. Right? Makes him violently ill. Causes him to be very upset. But, on the other hand, the good seed is a just weight, and it is God's delight. If you go on, as you go through here, this whole chapter is dedicated and illustrates these points. We won't look at every single verse, but I just want you to see this. Verse 2 says, when pride cometh, then cometh shame. So if you plant the seed of pride in your life, you will not be proud long, because what you will grow is a fruit called shame. Now, that's kind of contradictory, isn't it? I mean, that's not what we set out for. That's not what we designed or desired in the beginning. When we planted that, we thought, man, this is going to be great. I'll be able to reach over and pat myself on the back and say, look at me, look what I did. And all of a sudden, he says, what you're going to have instead is shame. But with the lowly is wisdom. In verse 3, the integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. See, there's seeds there. Integrity grows guidance, while perverseness grows destruction. And you get to choose which of those seeds you're going to plant. Verse 4, riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. Now think about that. You can today in your life decide, I want to be wealthy. I want to get a lot of money. I want to have that just in case of an emergency, just in case I need to get out of some problem, then I can just pay my way out. Well, there is a problem you can't pay your way out of. God will not be bought with your money. Right? So if you spend your whole life as the foolish farmer, as Jesus depicted in his parables, you spend your life storing away riches, and all of a sudden you got to stand before God, your money is of no value. Right? But if you instead, through your whole life, didn't worry so much about the money, but planted the seeds of righteousness, that would help you. See, now there's a treasure that will benefit you. Moving along, verse 5. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. Which seed are you going to grow? Righteousness grows help. Wickedness produces falling and destruction. And it goes on and on through Proverbs chapter 11. Jump with me down to verse 16. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 16. Notice here, a gracious woman retaineth honor, and strong men retain riches. Graciousness produces and grows honor. If you are gracious to people and you are good to people, you will get honor. Verse 17, mercy grows goodness. Verse 18, righteousness grows a reward. Verse 19, righteousness grows life, and evil grows death. All the way through this chapter, you see these behavioral seeds contrasted, the good seed contrasted against the bad seed. And we understand that what you sow, you will reap. Turn with me back to the left a little further to the book of Job. Book of Job. Look at chapter 4 with me in verse number 8. Job chapter 4, verse number 8. Everybody knows Job was, what kind of man was Job? A righteous man. God said so. It is certainly our opinion. We can look back and we can look at that, but most importantly, it's God's opinion of Job, right? And even when his friends came along and tried to accuse him of maybe not being everything that he's portrayed to be, they couldn't get anything to stick. And in the end, God judged them and defended him. Notice Job chapter 4, verse number 8 with me. He says, even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. Now, I'll say this. Job's friend, in this case Eliphaz, they had a lot of truth in what they said. They were just applying it in the wrong way. What he says here coincides with everything else God says. If you sow in your field wickedness and ungodliness, you are going to reap the same thing. Right? Just like if you plant corn, you're going to get corn. Or if you plant tomato seeds, you're going to get tomatoes. If you plant wickedness in your field, your life, at some point, you're going to grow ungodliness and things that are not going to benefit you. Now, I don't know, maybe. You ever heard about wild oats? Anybody ever heard about wild oats? Has anybody ever sown any? Now, either I'm the only one here honest, or y'all don't really know what you're talking about. Okay. That was the thing. You know, young people, I don't know, maybe you've not heard. Have you heard about wild oats? Have you? Okay. So somebody's educated you. I'm glad. It has been said that young people they have to go sow their wild oats. Let me help you here. No, you don't. You don't have to sow your wild oats. You can look at everybody else's field and say, no, thank you, I don't want any of that. Right? Wild oats are pretty obvious to the onlookers. Right? I happen to, on my county road, I happen to have some other farmers living on my road. And for years, they planted beans in the same field every year, soybeans. And they'd plant their soybeans, but they didn't treat for weeds. They didn't do, they just took their no-till planter and they ran through the weed patch and planted the beans. And when it came time to harvest, they had to run their combine through the weeds to figure out how many beans they might get. Right? And it's easy. I mean, you drive past one field and it is all beans, and you can see that that's beans. You drive past that field and you're not sure whether it's a weed patch or beans or what exactly happened there. Right? And it's the same with wild oats. All you got to do is drive by the field and you can see what's going on. Right? Turn the news on. I'm not suggesting you turn the news on. I'm just saying if you did, you would see a lot of wild oats growing. Right? I suspect you young people that are in the public school system especially get to see a few wild oat fields along the way somewhere. Right? If some of us adults were honest this morning, instead of trying to sit on our hands, we would be honest and let some of the others know that, hey, I sowed my wild oat patch, and boy, it did not grow anything I wanted to harvest. When we sow our wild oats, we reap wild oats. And you don't have to plant that field. You don't have to go out there and do that. When you sow fleshly seeds, you will grow the same. And there's no avoiding that. And you will reap corruption. Back in our text in Galatians chapter 6, I want you to notice now verse number 8. Galatians chapter 6 and verse number 8. It says, for he that soweth to his flesh. Now, notice how God words this. Shall of the flesh reap corruption. Notice how that's stated. If you sow the wild oats, you will reap wild oats. You will reap corruption. You will reap something you don't want. He that soweth to the flesh. That word flesh, if I gave you a literal definition of the Greek word there, corruption, decay, ruin. That's what that means. But the word Spirit, he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. That word Spirit means everlasting life. It refers to heaven. If you sow heavenly seed, if you get your seeds from heaven and sow them, you're going to reap a blessing. If you, on the other hand, get your seeds from the flesh, from the corruption, from the world, fellas, ladies, young ones especially, listen to me. If you get your seed packs from your buddies and your girlfriends, you will grow what they are growing. Sometimes, well, like I said, my wife has she has buckets of seeds and boxes of seeds, and she's collected seeds. She likes heirloom seeds. Brother Rich has given her lots of seeds. He called us last year before, and said, "Hey, preacher, stop by our house." And we was on the way. I stopped. There's a great big old box showed up in the back of my truck full of seeds. All different kinds of seeds. Lettuce seeds and radish seeds, and I mean, all kinds of precious seeds we got. The seeds you plant, whatever fruit, whatever vegetable, whatever it is, that's what you're going to get. And if your seeds are corrupt, they decay, they're ruinous seeds, that's what you're going to grow. A thief steals. Now think about this for a moment. A thief steals so that he can gain, right? Go in, I'm going to rob a bank so I can get $1 million. What's he get instead? Jail time. He gets to eat beanie weenies for several years, right? He gets to eat tube steak. When I preached at the county jail, that's what they called hot dogs, tube steak. And that's what they got almost every day. I guess if you like tube steak, that's all right. I know how you can get some. You just go up here to the bank and you tell them you want some money that don't belong to you, and then you can go down here and get you a room at the local sheriff's department, and you can get tube steak the rest of your life. But that's probably not why you went to steal $1 million, was so you could buy a bunch of hot dogs. A thief steals so that he can get gain, but really what he's getting is lost, and he just doesn't know it yet. If you try to escape, if you try to get around this law, God is going to make sure you don't and can't. Now I want to read you a passage from Romans chapter 2. You can follow me there if you wish to, but in Romans chapter 2, starting in verse number 5, it says this: "But after thy hardness and impenitent heart, treasurest up unto thyself wrath against the day of wrath, and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to every man," that includes you, "according to his deeds. To them who by patient continuance in well-doing seek for glory and honor and immortality, eternal life." Verse 8, "But unto them who are contentious and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation, and wrath, tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also of the Gentile, but glory and honor and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile, for there is no respect of persons with God." You can't escape it. Even if you're his bestie, even if you're his favorite, you will reap what you sow. King David was one of God's men after God's own heart, a friend of God. But when he sinned with Bathsheba, he got the fruit of that. I'm not going to take the time this morning to go back and rehearse all of that, but I just wanted to make this known. Even if God does love you, and he does, you cannot outrun the law of sowing and reaping. You cannot avoid the law of sowing and reaping. There is not a way around the law of sowing and reaping. you will reap what you sow. Let me give you a second thought this morning about this passage and about this law. This can be a little scary, so hold on for just a minute. You will always reap more than you sowed. But it was just one time. But I only did it for... Let me ask you a question. If you're driving on the interstate and you think, I wonder how fast this car can go. And for the next 1 mile, you smash it to the floor and you end up topping 110 and you happen by a police officer, are you going to get a ticket? He doesn't care if that's the only mile you've ever driven that fast. He doesn't care if you've never sped before in your whole life, or if you vow that you'll never do it again. You're going to get a ticket because you reap what you sow. And you reap more than you sow. And that's another aspect of this law of sowing and reaping. If you plant a kernel of corn in the ground, now most people aren't going to do that, right? You might plant a tomato seed. Unless you're my wife, you're going to plant 800. That's just her. She likes tomatoes, and so do I. But here's the thing. If you plant a kernel of corn, you're going to grow a cob or two. That's a lot of kernels, right? It won't get you very far in a family of 14, but that's what's going to happen. In Mark chapter 4, verses 3 through 9, hearken, behold, there went out a sower to sow, and it came to pass, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the fowls of the air came and devoured it up, and sin fell on the stony ground, where it had not much earth, and immediately it sprang up, because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, and it was scorched, because it had no root, it withered away. Some fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and yielded no fruit, and other fell on good ground, and did yield fruit, and sprang up, and increased, and brought forth some 30, and some 60, and some 100. And he said unto them, He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. So, well, there it is, preacher, there's my way out. I'm just going to make sure that all my wild oat seeds don't fall on the good ground. They fall on the bad ground, and they get choked out by the thorns, and they're going to be eaten up by the fowls. Listen, I wouldn't count on that. Say, well, why don't you think that'll work? Have you ever looked at a garden? You can plant the whole thing in the best seeds on the planet, and in about 2 weeks, you're going to have more weeds than you got good plants. And if you don't go out there every week and pull up the weeds, pretty soon you won't even know you planted any good seeds. See, here's the thing about weeds. They're a lot easier to grow than the good seeds. So I wouldn't count on that. But we do notice here that the Lord in his parable said that these good seeds, some produced 30, some produced 60, and some produced 100-fold. And the weed seeds always produce 100-fold. It doesn't matter where you plant them. You can plant weeds on the nastiest, roughest, rockiest terrain, and you'll get some to grow. It's easier to grow weeds than it is tomatoes or carrots or broccoli. Don't count on your seeds of the flesh failing, because they probably won't. They probably won't. But the seeds that you plant, you should always expect to get more than you planted. So while you're considering what kind of seed to plant, consider what kind of fruit you want to harvest, and then consider the quantity that you'd like to harvest. What kind of quantity would you like to harvest of whatever it is that you're planting? I've already mentioned, sometimes people plant a tomato plant, and sometimes my wife plants 800 tomato plants. And then the next year she might plant 600. And then well, maybe that was a little much, and so I'll only plant 500 or 400. Anybody else plant 400 or 500 tomato plants? That's what I expected. But hey, if you're going to plant that much, you need to figure out what you're going to do with that much, right? There are some folks that are planting this wild oat seeds in abundant quantities, and they have taken no thought of the harvest that's coming. Well, we need to consider that you're going to reap more than you planted. And ye shall reap, the Bible says. Ye shall reap. And then let me give you a third truth this morning before we close up about this law of the sowing and reaping. Look in Galatians 6, verse number 9, and consider what it says. It says, let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. Well, there it is. There's another way out. I'm just going to faint. Well, I don't know how you're going to do that. How are you going to not reap? See, because it is appointed unto man once to die, and after that, the judgment. So even if you don't reap the benefit of all those wild oats on this planet, He already knows how many seeds you planted, and He's so smart, He already knows what the yield is going to be. And your reward is coming. Your reward is coming. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? In due season, He said, we shall reap. It can be challenging, waiting patiently for our seeds to sprout, to mature, and to finally produce our long-awaited first ripe tomato. Isn't that that's a very challenging waiting game. And every day you go up there, well, oh look, there's some started. Oh, they're starting to turn. They're starting to turn. It should be a couple of days now, and then you go up. Some turtle came and took a bite out of it. Some raccoon come along or possum come along and stole it. Man. You plant that big old corn patch, especially sweet corn. Tomorrow we're going to harvest. Tomorrow's the day for our sweet corn harvest. We can't wait. And the next morning you get up only to find every coon in the neighborhood for miles around has figured out that tomorrow was harvest day, and they beat you to it. In due season you shall reap. Rest assured, friends, harvest day's coming. Regardless of the kind of seeds that you put in the ground, harvest is coming. You know, on the back of the seeds, the packages of seeds, maybe you've not noticed this, but on the back, it will tell you date to maturity. From the time that seed breaks its seed coat to the time of first ripe fruit, within a day or two, a few days, depending on the weather a little bit, it's going to tell you how long you have to wait for that to mature to first ripe fruit. I don't know that wild oat seeds have that. It seems to me they just keep springing up here and there. Oh, all of those seeds should have been done expired and not going to harvest. There's no way. It's done rotted in the ground. The mice ate it. Mice don't eat wild oat seeds. The little boll weevils, they don't eat wild oat seeds. Only the good ones. Only the good seeds. Listen, if I put a seed in the dirt, you know what I can't expect? You know what I shouldn't expect? I shouldn't expect to go out there the next day and eat some fruit. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't even happen quickly. It takes time. And so it would be foolish to say, oh, look at all these seeds that I planted. I'm going to have a big harvest of good fruit. Or consider the foolishness of this. Look, I know what God says, and I know what the law of sowing and reaping says, but I have been planting my wild oat seeds for all this time, and look, nothing bad's happened yet. Ye shall reap. Ye shall. Keep sowing, because harvest is coming. Look here. I did what was right. But God didn't notice, and look, I haven't gotten any reward for all that labor that I did. If you faint not, ye shall reap. Listen, God knows He will not be mocked. You will reap what you sow. It will take some time, but it will happen. So we're about to close. This was more like preaching than it was teaching, I have a feeling. For both of us, maybe. Sorry. It's just what the Lord gave me, just trying to help you. You know, there's folks that do YouTube videos on how to plant their garden and what the best way to grow a crop is and all that other stuff. You ever watched any of those YouTube videos? Yeah. We're making a YouTube video this morning about something way more important than growing tomatoes. This is way more important than the vegetable garden. The fruit that you're going to reap from this planting, you will reap for the rest of eternity. This garden will never stop blooming. It will perpetually produce fruit, either good or bad. Either good or bad. Because that's what God's going to judge us. It's either heaven or hell after this. It's either a perpetual garden of good fruits or a perpetual garden of something I don't want nothing to do with. But I won't have any choice either. So I want you to take just a moment as we're going to close to consider the kind of fruit that you've been planting. What kind of seeds have you been putting in the ground in your life? What harvest do you have to look forward to? And if you don't like the prospect of what kind of harvest is coming and what kind of reaping you'll have to do and how big a barn you might need to store it all, my recommendation is you change the seeds this morning. Change your source of seed and your rate of seeding. Don't wait for harvest day and then go, uh-oh. What we need to do is repent and change today, right away. Change your supplier of seeds. Don't wait for the first ripe fruits, because they will be bitter, and you will have years of resentment. I didn't mean for it to be heavy. I hope that you understand that I really want to help. And I'm speaking from experience this morning. I spent many years planting wild oat seeds. I'm just hoping that I'm getting closer to the end of pulling weeds from my garden, if you know what I'm talking about. We need to close in prayer. It's about 8 minutes of. Take a little break, use the restroom. And we're going to come back together in just a few minutes. And I want to share some thoughts with you this morning. I told you they're all connected today, right? And if you want encouraging, come tonight. If you want encouraging, if you want to see some solution and resolution, and you want to leave with a smile on your face, Don't leave this morning because this is key information. Don't leave yet. I hope I've given you something here that will help you, but this next hour I'm going to share the problem and the progression of our sin. The problem and the progression of our sin. We're going to look at that a little bit from the Scriptures. And then tonight we'll talk about the help. The help. Father, I want to thank you for the day. Thank you for your love for us, and I pray for your help today as you see who's here, as you know the crop that's been planted, the seed that have been sown, the yield that is anticipated. I pray that you'd help us. Father, if we're not planting good seed, if we've not been sowing good seed, I pray that you'd help us to change our seed supplier and change the seeds that we're sowing, that we might yield a much better fruit. We ask for your blessing and your help this morning in Jesus' name. Amen.